The Arbiter's Ground, a mysterious place in the legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. It was once a prison, but there might be more behind this than just a prison. It may have served a way more dark and barbaric purpose. The Gerudo Desert once held a prison built to hold the worst criminals this land has ever known. The criminals who were sentenced to death were directly sent to the underworld by a cursed mirror that was kept inside the prison. Now that prison is condemned, and even the road leading to the desert is impassable. This desert at World's End. This still holds the cursed mirror and the malice of the doomed inmates. The Arbiter's Ground is the fourth dungeon in Twilight Princess. The Arbiter's Ground was a prison built to house the most ruthless criminals while they awaited trial, execution, or exile to the netherworld of the Twilight. The Mirror Chamber, home of the ancient relic known as the Mirror of Twilight. It stands atop the ruins of Arbiter's Ground, where the sacred council of the sages presides over the cursed grounds, conducting trials of executions of convicted criminals. It is filled with the undead and the ghosts of the past, and is located in Gerudo Desert. After Link retrieves the Master Sword, Mid now directs him to the Arbiter's Ground, so that they can enter the Twilight Realm using the Mirror of Twilight found within.
Upon reaching the top room of the Arbiter's Grounds, Midna and Link stumble across a massive skeletal beast. Zant appears and plunges a magic blade into its skull, reanimating it as Stallord. After the battle, Link and Midna enter the Mirror Chamber, only to find the Mirror of Twilight broken. The ancient sages appear and explain to them the tale of Ganondorf's execution and that Zant has fragmented the mirror. Now, we all know that there is something wrong with the Arbiter's Grounds. The feeling alone can give you shivers down your spine. I mean, just look at the environment and atmosphere. Reminds me of the Shadow Temple. The dungeon is desert themed and is filled with quicksand and sand whirlpools that will consume you. Along the way, Link must face many undead monsters related to the backstory of a prison. The dungeon features many dark areas and puzzles which require the use of the lantern, as well as poison mites which can be scared away by the lantern. But what's the real purpose of this place? Sure, the game says it's a former prison, but the writings on the wall, architecture, and enemies tell a totally different story. Let's first start off with the final boss of the dungeon, the Stallord. Stallord is a skeleton of a dead beast found inside the Arbiter's Grounds. It has a roughly humanoid upper body protruding from a pit of sand, and a horned animal head comparable to a goat or dragon. Its lower body is never seen. In fact, whether its lower portions were even present at the time is unknown. Several weapons are embedded in the beast's skull, possibly the cause of its death. The music played during the battle against Stallord incorporate the re-instrumentalized versions of the music played during the battles against King Dodongo and Volvagia from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. By name, it is a king of the Stalfos in Arbiter's Grounds. Now, what would be the reason for such a big beast to be housed inside a prison? It would be a better idea to just straight up kill him instead of leaving and forsaking him to rot away. Even if that was not possible, then how did they get him inside the Arbiter's Ground?
Well, after taking a look at the Arbiter's Ground and everything around it, I noticed something. Now hear this. I think that the Arbiter's Ground was no normal prison, oh no, but rather a gladiatorial arena made to get rid of prisoners and earn a little money on the side. This was a completely normal thing in ancient times, for example, the Roman Empire. It drew hundreds of people and even thousands to the arenas. But who were the ones fighting in those arenas? Gladiators armed to the teeth, who entertained audiences in the Roman Empire in violent confrontations with other gladiators, wild animals, and condemned criminals. Some gladiators were volunteers who risked their own lives and their legal and social standing by appearing in the arena. Most were despised as slaves and schooled under harsh conditions. But what's the connection between all of this and the Arbiter's Ground? Well, let's first look at the architecture of the Arbiter's Ground compared to a real-life arena. The Arbiter's Ground contains 4 floors and 2 basements, and looks a lot like the old Roman Colosseum. Just like the Roman Colosseum, it's circular, so that the crowd could see all the action. It has basements where in the Colosseum they would store the convicts, wild animals, and gladiators. Now, it's not sure if the Arbiter's Ground used the basement for the exact same reason as the Colosseum did. That's because the prison has fallen into ruin. It also doesn't make sense that the Arbiter's Ground has a grand entrance with poles with the Hyrulean symbol on it, which also appear to be flagpoles. It just doesn't look like a normal prison. Its entire presentation is completely wrong for this. It matches the appearance of an arena, a big majestic building which catches the eye.
Now, this is not the only factor supporting this theory. The drawings on the wall tell a story of some sort of warrior fighting a legendary monster. The Stallord, perhaps? Well, yes, just look at the Stallord. It has clearly seen some action, and what would be the reason for keeping such a huge monster in a prison? Now, if we put the Stallord in an arena situation, then it would make sense because he would be used as a beast, where the victims would fight against him, in fear. They would be geared up and put on the pillar in the middle of the hole where the fight with the Stallord takes place, and lowered down towards the monster, where they would fight for their lives, shooting arrows at the beast which we see embedded in its skull. This all happened while people were watching from above just for entertainment. We can still see the dead gladiators during the boss fight with the Stallord, now called Stall Troops. These undead enemies look similar to Hyrulean soldiers and are summoned by Stallord during the first part of its battle with Link. Stall Troops do not attack Link, but instead rise out of the ground and deflect his spinner. They often appear directly in front of Stallord's spine after it has been damaged for the first time, usually moments before Link makes contact, forcing Link to swerve around them at the last second in order to damage Stallord. To defeat Stallord, Link must maneuver around the Stall Troops.
Now, these so-called Stall Troops are probably the reanimated fallen gladiators that once fought the Stallord. But hold on, there is more. Let's take a look at the mirror chamber. It has the same layout as an actual arena, from the big sandbox in the middle to the bleachers all around where the audience can sit down, while they were watching a criminal being executed or sent to the Twilight Realm, and this was no strange thing in ancient times either. Executions even happened on the streets, while everybody was watching. The Colosseum has a similar layout as the Arbiter's Ground, and don't forget, this stuff made a lot of money. From the bets people placed on certain matches to the entrance fee, and things like this would be huge events. For example, the Colosseum could house around 50,000 to 65,000 people, so it was a big booming business. Also, no small number of people were slain in such big arenas, like the Colosseum, and keep in mind that the Arbiter's Ground is probably around the same size. Historians estimated that over the centuries, between 300,000 and 500,000 people have died in the Colosseum. And so you see the more dark and barbaric hidden purpose behind the Arbiter's Ground. Thanks for watching, everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to check out Zelda Conqueror's theories, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter or follow the channel to keep up to date with all the videos.